And welcome to the Lunacy Podcast. My name is Tony. I'm here with Dave Sterling, and I'm Tony Pervidanzi. Dave Stevens is on assignment. No, he's not actually on assignment. He is actually in Argentina for work.
He's scouting.
He's scouting players for the United. So this is the second podcast I know that Dave has missed.
Yeah.
And
what's up with that?
I don't know. I think maybe he's trying to find another podcast to do. Potentially. I don't know.
Some offers, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. We are, of course, part of the Beautiful Game Network, bgn.fm. You can also find us on our website now. We have a website.
We do have a website, lunacypodcast.com.
lunacypodcast.com. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Yeah, we're on everything.
Yes,
so,
we're available on iTunes.
iTunes, yeah, everywhere. So, before we begin, of course, we want to talk about the beers that we're drinking. Dave has graciously brought us some beers from North Dakota. Now, these aren't Minnesota beers. These are North Dakota beers, but it's close enough.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to cheer for someone, you'd hope that they're cheering for Minnesota United. So.
Yeah, I'd hope so. These are from Drecker Brewing in Fargo, Nodak. This is the People Eater Blueberry Basil Sour Ale. And I love sours. And this is a very good sour ale. So,
yeah, I really like it too.
Yeah.
And it's I don't taste the basil anywhere, but otherwise it's very very solid beer.
Yeah. If you hear in the background, we have the heater going in my garage. I'm going to shut it off right now.
Unfortunately, it's spiking us a bit too much.
So anyways, back to the podcast. Sorry about that, guys. It is getting a little cold out in Minnesota here, so we're trying to do this from my garage, and having a garage heater makes it better, but of course it sounds a little bit crazy. A couple of housekeeping things before we get into some other stuff, some, of course, United talk and some other things that Dave wants to talk about. I want to thank John Andruski for graciously stepping in for me and Dave while we were on vacation. He did a great job on the podcast, even though he says he didn't do a great job.
Right.
And, of course, my only problem with Johnny 2 weeks ago was him drinking water in the podcast. I understand that.
And I pointed out on that episode that there was an episode that I drank water. Right?
Yeah, there was an episode you drank water, which is fine. He did a fantastic job. Hey, you're stepping in for a couple guys, and you're going to have a different way of doing things. Yeah. That's totally fine.
And he's never done it, so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he's participated, but.
Yes, he has participated, but never done the hosting gigs. Well, he's in hosting one. When I was in Wisconsin Dells, he kind of hosted.
Oh, that's a good point. He did the intro.
He did the intro. Yep, that's right. Dave and I wanted to call in. We were in Victoria, British Columbia. We were on a cruise. I'll get into that later. But we wanted to call in. We were having some technical difficulties. Didn't work out. But we did make it back fine. And I guess we'll talk about the cruise later because it was interesting. I got to see a more famous podcast than ours live in person. Just slightly. And it was a great time. So, Dave, you want to say a couple things before we get started on the Loon stuff?
Yeah. So first off, I want to congratulate the Milwaukee Brewers for making the postseason.
Of course you did. Jeez.
Of course. Now it's down to today.
Yeah.
For the division.
Yeah.
Cubs and Brewers are tied with a game left, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Second thing is it's been a tenuous week in politics.
Yes, it has been.
And, we always pride ourselves in not talking about politics on this podcast, so I'm not really going to talk about politics at all.
Yeah.
But I wanted to point out the fact that one of the coolest things about sports is, and soccer especially with how diverse it is that you can have people from the entire political spectrum who would be at each other's throats every day of the week talking about politics. But one game a week can come together and cheer for a team.
Correct.
And, Minnesota's especially interesting with this because, of course, we have the Red Loons, which is a communist supporters group.
Wow.
And we also have the Mill City Ultras, which are Antifa connected. And then we have an anarcho-capitalist group, which I think is pretty small, but they're very libertarian.
Oh.
And then we have a whole bunch of, everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so it's really interesting to see that, you can put your political opinions aside for one game a week.
Yeah.
And support the team. And one thing that kind of pissed me off on Thursday was right when it was the peak of hysteria for the political world, was that there were a number of soccer analysts, talking heads on Twitter deciding to use their feed to have their political opinion. And I don't care what their political opinion is.
Yeah.
I could care less. But the reality is it drove me nuts because I like seeing Matt Doyle from Armchair Analyst from MLS, and then Jeff Reuter from The Athletic, and Andrew Wiebe from MLS, Taylor Twellman from ESPN, talking soccer, whether it's MLS, whether it's USL, USSF, whether it's the EPL, whatever. It's always nice to see their insight, to interact with them. And it seemed like every single tweet I saw on Thursday and Friday too was politics related.
Oh.
And I'm just like, you know what? I get it. Set it aside. Don't deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I understand that you want to be involved, and people will argue, well, you have to be involved to some point. And I'm like, well, sure, you have to be involved to some point. But the reality is, try to keep it out of your sports feed.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I understand Jeff because he does a lot of soccer stuff from his own personal account as opposed to The Athletic.
Sure.
But when it's like Andrew Wiebe and it's Matt Doyle and it's Taylor Twellman, people are expecting to hear a lot of soccer stuff, and they end up seeing this political stuff. And when you look at their accounts and you see they have hundreds, thousands of followers, and then these political tweets are getting like, a couple thousand interactions, it's like maybe that's a hint that their followers don't want to hear that stuff. So I've really liked the fact that we kind of kept this podcast away from that polarizing political issue. I mean, even my own personal Twitter account, I've cut way back on the politics.
Yeah.
Just because I know that people can see things, and I don't want to ostracize anyone. I don't want to alienate anyone.
Yeah.
And it's just really kind of cool that sports can kind of separate those things. Whether it's what's happening in St. Paul, or whether it's what's happening at City Hall or DC, or even Brussels with the EU, whatever. If we can kind of ignore that noise sometimes,
yes,
or most of the time, I think a lot of people would appreciate it because it's obviously important. I mean, I built my degree around it, but I mean, it's still at the same time, there's way more to life than politics. Mm-hmm. And in the end, it's not going to matter what we say.
No.
So let's keep it about sports.
Yeah, that brings up a good point too, Dave, because I really want to talk about the political climate in Otsego, about City Hall. I'm just kidding. I have no problems with Otsego. Dave brings up a good point. Seeing players, commentators especially, and even celebrities talk about politics. Again, I don't want to throw anybody out. If you like the Minnesota United, great. Then let's talk about the Minnesota United. Let's not talk about politics. Let's not talk about, whatever. Let's just do this, what we're doing right now. Let's just do this and leave that stuff for CNN and MSNBC and all those other people to deal with.
Exactly.
So,
with that said, and again, go Brewers.
Go Brewers, yeah.
Let's get into it. Portland, right?
Portland, which was last week, right?
Yeah.
Last Saturday. I watched some of the game. I actually watched the end of the game when Portland was trying to come back, and I was playing
very well at it.
And and I was playing the here we go again. We're gonna screw this up because we need it. We need to win these games, and they actually pulled it out. It was a how would I put it? It was a good win by the Loons.
Because it's a win.
Because it's a win. But it was a poor finish to the game. And we'll get into that too with last night's game as well. Yeah. You know, another good game last night, but a poor finish from the Loons. So let's get into who scored for the Loons last week.
So Romario Ibarra had a brace.
Yes.
And then also Michael Boxall had a goal.
Nice. So nice.
Yeah. Great to see both of those guys get on the score sheet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was really a tale of two halves. The first half was fantastic. I mean, you unfortunately missed the best part of the game.
I got into it probably I think I got into it when they scored the third goal.
Okay, so right at the end of the half.
Right at the end of the half. And then I was watching most of the second half. So I saw the last of the best parts, as you would say.
Okay. Yeah, because, I mean, we had 3 goals, another 2 really good chances.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we controlled possession the entire first half. Passing was really good. You know, we just looked threatening the entire half. And, you know, the first goal came in the 17th minute.
Yep.
It was assisted by Darwin. It was a really, really nice pass from, I believe it was Maximiano.
Oh.
And passed it into Darwin, who slipped past the defense. And, you know, he did what he does.
Yes.
And drew defenders, stops dead in his tracks, spins around, boom, finds Romario on the back post. You can't get any more clinical than that goal. That goal was just a fantastic team effort.
It's like, I look at Darwin, and I've said this before, it's almost like somebody is controlling him on FIFA.
Right.
I mean, seriously, the moves that he makes, I marvel at them because I don't know any. There's other guys who can do that.
Right.
There are. But for us in Minnesota, we've never seen that in person before.
Yeah.
I mean, we've never had a guy like this.
And, you know, not to get sidetracked too much, but I remember somebody this past week, I think it was on Twitter, maybe from the Strib, can't remember, or maybe Pioneer Press, said it's interesting to see that quite possibly the best athlete in Minnesota is a soccer player.
Yep.
Because he's got obviously 90% of Minnesotans don't know who Darwin Quintero is.
Nope.
But of the soccer community, you have all of these people, especially the Latino selection of our population who know the teams in Liga MX, have seen him play in Liga MX, know who he is. I mean, he's a superstar to most Liga MX fans.
Yeah.
And so to have a player like him be a soccer player, is pretty cool. Yeah.
So again, we ramble on about Darwin, but he's great.
Yep.
Second goal last week was
again Romario Ibarra.
Okay.
And you know, again, this was just a lot of good pressure by Minnesota. Vilfiana, I totally butchered that name, attempted to pass it in the center of the pitch, and for whatever reason, Polo had, you know, he couldn't handle the pass. It didn't seem like it was a crazy pass, but for whatever reason, he couldn't bounce off of him. And of course, who is there waiting to get that ball was Darwin.
Of course.
And he immediately turned to goal, and he fed the perfect through ball to Ibarra, and Romario put it in again.
Of course.
Goal number 2.
Yep.
Brace in the first half, fantastic. I mean, I should point out that Romario had a really good run that split the defense.
Yeah.